Hey, everybody, welcome back to Emerald Coast Weekly. Again, I'm Ted from the Fort Walton Beach Chamber of Commerce, and each and every week we get to interview one of our, either our nonprofits or one of our stars of the community. And today, my friends, the big star himself, our newest elected sheriff, Eric Aden. Eric, exciting to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm proud to be here.
Very exciting. Now, John Crenshaw, you've seen Eric Aden's picture all over town now on the billboards, haven't you?
I have.
Thanking the community for running unopposed in our community. Let's start off with that, Eric. I mean, a lot of people may not have known you, but to run unopposed, how did that make you feel?
I was humbled. I never thought I would run unopposed. I knew that I had a good platform, and I knew that I had a big support group. And when the finances started coming in, it really kind of solidified my dream. And to be able to run unopposed is still shocking to me. It's kind of surreal. And I just wanted to put the billboards up to, just thank the community that did get behind me and kind of get my face out there and name for those that still, because I'm not being on the ballot, there's going to be a large faction of the community, even though I've been here my whole life, that doesn't know me. And it's a good way for those, whether they're working out on the base or working, in other fields that I don't necessarily work in the same circles, that they're going to get to know my name.
No doubt. And honestly, John Crenshaw, you really don't want to know the sheriff or the deputies. You want to know they're there, but you don't want to see them, though, do you?
Certainly I do.
Oh, you do, of course.
Absolutely.
I don't. You don't want them behind you, pulling you over.
Well, no, that's not what I'm talking about.
See, I've had the pleasure of having been here 30 years, I've had the pleasure of knowing Larry Ashley. Have you met Larry yet, Sheriff Ashley?
I have not.
All right. The thing I want you to compare when you see him, because we'll see him at some point in time, is you'll see that Eric Aden is beginning to look like Sheriff Ashley with the hair.
Not only
is
gray,
that part of the criteria?
Not only gray, but we have very similar hairstyle. His is a little bit taller, flat top than mine. But.
It's like the Johnny Unitas of the way I used to describe it. So already one of the criteria to be the sheriff of Okaloosa County is the crew top, etc. Have you wore your hair like that a long time?
Since high school, really.
Oh, really? You have? Okay, It's a good look.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a good look for you. And when you said earlier about the billboards, the picture, Eric, a dashing young man who is going to be our sheriff. So what's the procedure from here? When do you actually take over?
Well, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit on that, but I'll say that our sheriff's a very involved sheriff. Without his support, I don't think I would have run unopposed. He's a very, very well-liked individual. He is very popular in our community. He's a faith-based Christian that runs a very tight ship. And having his support, I think, solidified me and the fact that I think I've worked hard. But going to the Sheriff Ashley, I mean, there's no doubt, not only figuratively, but literally, big shoes to fill for me. It's a lot of stress because, it's actually in some sense easier to take over an office that's not being run properly, but when you come into an office that is run so efficiently and so well with his leadership, it's intimidating. There's some anxiety there, but I'll tell you, he is a very involved sheriff. Yep. A lot of people, I was telling Kevin downstairs, a lot of elected officials at this point, 30 years into his career, 31 years, they're ready to sail off into the sunset. And especially given, the hiccups that here we are at the last minute, God forbid we have a named storm or something that we have to go through like Hurricane Michael, but he's dealing with COVID. He's dealing with the political unrest around the country. So he's a very active sheriff, very involved, and so he's not stepping away at any time soon. So January 5th is actually the swear-in date for me. So technically his last day would be January the 4th. And he hasn't given me any indication he's leaving anytime soon.
Yeah, no doubt. And I meant to say you don't want to see the sheriff, I only mean that from a kind of a joke about law enforcement. You don't want them to see him in your rearview mirror, et cetera. But I've had the pleasure to know Sheriff Ashley and getting to know Sheriff Eric Aden here. There's no doubt there'll be a statue of Larry Ashley somewhere in this town. He has done that much for our community, and I look forward to seeing him and celebrating his successes as things wind down, which will be cool. But let's get into the seriousness part, Eric. I mean, you are ready to serve our community. You've lived here your whole life. Let's talk a little bit about your history for those people who don't know.
Okay. I was born and raised here in Okaloosa County. Both my parents, my mother was from South Alabama, my dad was from North Alabama, and they went to Auburn and War Eagle. And I went to Florida State, but I went there because it was the number one criminology school in the country at the time. But I was born and raised here. Like I said, went to the product of the school system, went to Choctawhatchee High School. Upon graduation, I did go to Florida State. Great criminology school there. Great program. Wouldn't have changed that for anything. Gave me a really good opportunity and a leg going forward to be my dream, which was to run for sheriff one day. I have a kind of a funny story as to why I wanted to be sheriff. It is true, and it's kind of a funny story as well. When I was a young man, I got asked to the Sadie Hawkins dance, which is when the girl asks the guy.
Yes, wow.
And it was the sheriff's daughter. And
darn.
and I remember, at the time, I'm a young kid, and we're still playing cops and robbers and stuff, running around the neighborhood. And, I went home, was talking to my dad. I'm like, Dad, I don't know. And he said, son, that's the sheriff's daughter. You're going to the dance. I said, okay. So, and when he picked me up, he pulled up, and I love Sheriff Gilbert to this day, but he pulled up in that Jeep Grand Cherokee with that Stetson hat, and I said, man, that's going to be me one day.
There you go.
And that was really kind of the start of
it.
that I just, wanted to do something that I wanted to do for the community, and at the same time, feel like I was giving back, but an honorable position to be in. And so I went to Florida State, came home, became a deputy sheriff, spent 3.5 years on the road. I was a school resource officer. I got out of the business for a little bit. My brother, I kind of thought that the Lord was leaning me towards going towards maybe a federal job. And I thought I was going to maybe go into the ATF or one of these federal agencies. And so I started applying. My brother said, why don't you come help me start my mortgage business? And, I didn't know anything about banking and finance. And I said, well, I'll help you, for about a year while I do it. Well, 9 years later, I'm still knocking out mortgages. Now, meanwhile, I was a part-time deputy. And an opportunity came. A good friend, Graham Fountain, asked me if I wanted to get back in law enforcement. Sheriff Mike Atkinson, who I love dearly. He was recently elected in Walton County at the time, 2008, and he asked me. I didn't really know him. Unbeknownst to me, we had had some college classes together at Florida State, and he brought me over as a sergeant, and then I became a lieutenant, and then with Sheriff Ashley getting elected in 2010, lo and behold, I got an opportunity to come back home. Sheriff Ashley asked me if I wanted to come back and work for him, and I was a lieutenant, worked my way up through the ranks. I pretty much done everything in law enforcement that there is. And the undersheriff early on, several years ago, asked if I had any interest in becoming the sheriff. They knew I was very involved in the community and been on a lot of different committees and different clubs, Republican Club, and president of that. And so he asked if I had ambition to do that. I think he kind of saw it for what it was, and I said yeah, and he said, all right, well, let's get you ready. And he kind of moved me around and got me prepared because he wanted me to have a well-versed knowledge of the whole agency, and so he really has done a great job to get me prepared to be able to take the reins of the agency, and he wanted to make sure he left a well-oiled machine, which he has.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, and great, and it's interesting, Eric, because of the mortgage background and your financial responsibility you had to learn there. You certainly need that as a sheriff, right? So that's kind of an undirected result of that. You got to have that fiscal responsibility.
I did. It's proven very valuable. I mean, I think that learning our budget is a very daunting task, and we have a CFO that's incredible. But our sheriff has made it a very important mission of his to really dig down into the nuances of our budget because, he is very fiscally conservative, and he feels that he wants to be a good steward of the money to the citizens. And it's kind of his mentoring me has really helped me in that regard. But certainly my background in banking and finance, getting to know how to budget has really helped.
No, hey, when you were younger, you mentioned you've been here your whole time and you're a young driver. Did you ever get pulled over?
I did. And I got a quick funny story. I know we're short on time, but I'll tell you this. A recent retiree, and he was a patrolman at the time, and this was when I was 16, so we're talking 32 years ago. He gave me my first ticket, and I love it because, I don't love it that I got the ticket, but I got pulled over. I'm 16 years old. I'm driving down 12th Avenue in Shalimar going surfing, and I get pulled over by him, and Years later, I'm his lieutenant because he comes back as a part-time deputy after he retires. Now, he was a lieutenant when he retired, but he came back, and he just recently retired, 38 years with the sheriff's office, after having a career in the military, mind you. Wow. So I love what he responds to me every time I say, you gave me my first ticket, and he always says the same thing. He said, I didn't give you anything. You earned it.
How did you remember him, though? I mean, is that just something you knew? How do you know he was the guy?
Oh, I remember him. I just, because it was very, you got to realize I was 16. I started being around the sheriff's office actively as an intern at like 21. So I remembered who wrote me I remember Carlin, who I worked for also, that gave me my second ticket when I was going to Florida State. So he was an FHP guy at the time, but then he came to work for me when I was at Walton County.
There you go. So you have experience for both sides, obviously.
Hadn't been pulled over in
Exposed
20
to
years.
all sides of the process. As
Trust me,
one of my bosses put it.
When you said, I told the sheriff the other day, I said, I'm a cop and I don't even like it when I see blue lights behind me.
Right, that's what I was going to say. So, well, that's a classic, Eric. I love to learn a little bit more about you as we do get to know you from the community standpoint. You mentioned Larry and the fiscal responsibility. I was very pleased that our organization helped with the November 2018 half-cent surtax, predominantly to help not only PJ Adams, which we chatted about a little bit ago on the show today, but also to help the law enforcement. How are you folks reinvesting those funds in the betterment of our community?
Well, we can't use them for personnel, but we've been able to use them for equipment. We're building a state-of-the-art facility, and there's one large challenge, and we could talk about this for hours, but recruitment and retention is one of the most difficult things in law enforcement today, period. It's a nationwide epidemic, and trying to have those tools here to try to recruit good people, and we're building, it's really the sheriff's brainchild was to try to build this facility, and as slow as it's going, unfortunately, I don't know that it'll be completed by the time he leaves, but we have a great facility up there in the north end that we're building in Crestview to have a state-of-the-art range, SWAT facilities, training facilities. We're able to do Milo, which is we're able to do live, like force-on-force scenarios, and that's just one of the things that the sheriff had earmarked. And then, of course, I've sat down with trying to forecast with him and other county commissioners as to what we might need. Obviously, like any agency, we have grown. I started with 160 deputies, and we're at 325 deputies now.
Wow.
When I started. So we've doubled in size, and we're going to continue to grow. So those whether it be vehicles, a lot of those things that we have been able to reap the benefits of was for your hard work at the Chamber, and we certainly appreciate it.
We're very happy to do that, John, and you'll see the benefits in a variety of ways. But, you've increased. That's interesting. So the deputies have increased. Is that a result of more tourism, or what are some of the issues now that are facing you just in general for law enforcement in Okaloosa County?
Some of the biggest struggles we have, I mentioned, is the recruitment and retention. That's just a simple, again, I can't really go into that because it is going to be a long conversation. We don't have time for that. But the recruitment and retention is a huge challenge for us because the veteran workforce that we used to have, when I first started 25 years ago, 60% of our workforce were veterans. Now we're down to about 33%.
Oh.
And the reason for that, in my opinion, is that we've been at war for 20 years. A lot of these military guys, it was a nice transition. It was a nice, quiet place to work. It's not that case anymore. For one of the reasons you mentioned is that we have 42,000 people on average come here every week. 2 million people come to this county. We're the second most visited county in the state of Florida, next to Orange County. And for us to have that, we naturally see the infrastructure, the roadways, how they get backed up. Well, so too on law enforcement, the demand on law enforcement. Look at Crab Island. Even though you see the structures are gone, I've never seen it busier than it is this year at Crab Island. Yeah. So we've had to try and increase our efforts out there. The caseload for those Marine units have doubled in the last couple of years. So we've increased the manpower here because the fact that tourism, I remember when I was a kid growing up here, my dad couldn't wait till September because that's when, I hate to say this, the tourists left. And
everybody went home.
And they didn't come back till May. Well, I remember looking at the screen one night in January, and I told the guys, I said, look at this right now, guys. I said, this is the only time you'll see this. There's not a call on the screen. It's because it was 3 a.m. in January. But there's literally maybe a 3-week to a month break in January, and the rest of the year, you still drive around and you still see that. And our driving force when I was a kid was the DOD. Now it's not so much. We got tourism as our greatest entity here. And so we do enjoy the rewards of having them help, supply our half-cent sales tax and those sort of things. But it does create some challenges on us logistically.
Yeah, no doubt. And you mentioned the recruitment of folks, and if someone listening here on their favorite community broadcaster station was interested in getting in the field like you and all the other 300 folks, it really seems like a cool job. You get a cool uniform, you get to drive a car. How would you recommend that whether it's a high school student or someone looking for a new career? What do you think is the processes they should do?
Well, the high school students, we have a great program. It's an Explorer program. It's run by a couple of our deputies. It's usually involving our school resource officers because they're the ones that are dealing with the kids. So the Explorer program is a great way. It's kind of like, I would say, Cub Scouts of law enforcement. Right. And not everybody has it, but we do. And a lot of agencies do have it around the state. They kind of gets them acclimated to the role of a law enforcement officer. But how someone in the community, let's say that they are leaving the military and they're trying to decide what's the next good career. You know, a lot of the military folks that are leaving, they've got 20 years. They're still young. They're still young man or woman, and they have a lot to offer that, you know, that they could come, and they already have a skill set. We're a paramilitary organization, so they already know the mindset of rank and structure and command, and they're used to wearing a uniform. So they can reach out to the sheriff's office. We can direct them to the college. You know, the training facilities out there. Director Jeff McGill is the director of the public safety out there, and they have night classes as well as day classes. They basically have an academy, and the state mandates it. The day class is a little bit longer than the night, but that's how it gets started. With COVID, I mean, they've had some challenges at the college of trying to put on these courses because they're having to do things online, and we've all had to kind of change our procedures up with that. Yeah, but that'd be the way to go.
That's good. So high school kids and college folks, if you want, talk about go to your SRO at your school, ask them what the program is, and if you're interested in actually taking a course, Northwest Florida State College has that law enforcement school. So a couple of great ways of doing that. What is the best thing about being a sheriff's deputy? What is something that motivates you each and every day to get up for work?
You know, as I explained, I had a banking and finance and law enforcement background, and I couldn't stand getting up doing my banking and finance. I mean, nothing against. I'm glad there's people out there, and I learned something that a skill set that is very rewarding. But every day I get up, and every day it's different. Even though now I'm an administrator and I ride a desk and don't really drive a patrol car. So, I mean, my job role is different. But now I manage those resources that do answer those calls. But going back to my mindset when I was a young man, it was knowing you were making a difference, knowing that you were protecting the community that you love. And I truly believe this is God's paradise on earth. And so when you can protect it and protect those citizens that live here, and you know you can go home and you did the right thing, and you made a difference in someone's life, whether it be a child's life, whether you took them out of a bad environment, or whether an abused spouse that you helped get away from an abusive spouse. I mean, any of those number of things were really rewarding. I mean, there are some very difficult things that you see as a law enforcement officer that stick in your mind, and it's a very challenging job. But thankfully, and I will tell you this because I do want to get this out, I think there's 3 reasons that we're very successful in Okaloosa County. And you see the political unrest around the country. And I went to the FBI Academy. I was fortunate enough to be the 10th person in our 100 years of being in the county, the sheriff's department, be able to go to the academy. Very awesome opportunity, and I got to be around peers all over the world. 250 students from all over the world went to the FBI Academy. But some of my good friends are from these communities like Philly and New York, and they are really facing some challenges.
Ooh, I bet.
But the reason I think that we're a target-rich environment, I think we're going to find that people from those communities that are good cops, they don't want to be in that environment anymore. They're going to come try to find places like Okaloosa County. And the reason we're successful, and I'll leave it there, there's 3 things. You have to have a good workforce. And I truly believe that even those places that have this political unrest still are trying to find the best people in their workforce. But you have to have that. You have to have leadership that demands utmost excellence for their community with full transparency. And we have that. And then lastly, and maybe most importantly, you have to have the support of your community. And without one of those legs, you're going to fail. And we have all 3 of those legs. I can't tell you that I had to prepare a list of the community entities, businesses, churches that brought us food and supplies during this COVID. It was so heartfelt and so important to show to us, it showed us that our community believes in what we're doing. And these are people that were suffering themselves. These are restaurants that were having to deal with half menu or even closing. They were still bringing us food. And it was like, man, my paycheck didn't suffer. And so it really, really touched us that we were doing things the right way.
Folks, what a great opportunity. We've had a chance to chat with our new Sheriff, Eric Aden, taking over on January 5th. Eric, we're going to ask you to come back again and dig in a little bit more to some of the things happening in Okaloosa County, offering your pointers, et cetera. So on behalf of everyone at Community Broadcasters and Okaloosa County, we congratulate you and we look forward to your leadership here in our law enforcement division. Another episode of Emerald Coast Weekly winds down. I want to thank Jeff Cherry for his sponsorship, John Crenshaw for the production. Please stay tuned and come here again and listen in next week.